So just as an intro, my name is Sion Bhatia,
And I'm Soho Bhatia.
and so this program that we're presenting to you today, and that will continue for the next 4 weeks, is called Intro to Arduino. And our nonprofit called Start From Early is running this, and as well as many other programs that we always run. Um, Currently, I'm a junior at Redmond High School.
And I'm a sophomore at Redmond High School as well.
And yeah, so together we have around 6 years of combined experience. And in the last couple of years, we've taught STEM, and throughout our 6 years, we've been competing in a variety of STEM competitions. And we've been learning STEM concepts as we go on. So in the last few years, we've been taking all of our knowledge and spreading it through these programs, like others, and this one, to teach students more, from all ranging from science up to technology and engineering. So, and currently we're based in Redmond, Washington. We know a lot of you guys are from in different states too. So that's just great to see everyone come together. All right. So just as a base of what our organization does, like I said before, we have a lot of experience learning STEM as well as teaching STEM in the last few years. And for the last 6 years, like I said, we've been growing and learning a lot of different STEM concepts. And because of this, we started this organization in hopes to provide STEM programs like this to people of your age. And since a lot of elementary school students or middle school students, which is the variety, which is the range of students that we have here today, don't usually have subjects like physics or technology or Arduino like programs like these in their schools. We're providing this as a program outside of school. So that's why we've been doing this. And for the last 6 months, we've kind of just been taking our organization's focus into technology, and something more interesting like Arduino and building mobile apps.
Yeah, and as Sun mentioned before, I know some of you guys were using the chat function. I think that's familiar for people, but what we guys, this is a webinar, so we can't hear you guys or see you guys, but you guys can hear us. So the webinar, a Zoom webinar, is a little bit different than any regular meeting that you've probably attended before. So for these kind of meetings, for any questions that you guys may have throughout these sessions or any of these meetings, you guys can go ahead and click the Q&A button at the top to ask any questions. The questions can remain anonymous if you'd like, or they can be attached to your name. So just pick whatever your preference is. And then you guys can submit a question to us. We can receive the question and then answer it throughout the session as we go along directly to you. Sometimes if the question kind of involves everyone or is a good question for everyone, we'll be kind of addressing the question to the entire audience. But other than that, we'll typically we'll answer the question directly to you. So once again, just click that Q&A button down below. It's like that message icon. Click that. You can ask us a question, hit enter, and we'll be answering them throughout the session. And we'll also have a 10 to 15 minute period at the end of this entire call for you guys to ask any questions that you think are that are needed to ask.
All right. So as you can see, I just quickly released a poll. I was planning on releasing this in the beginning, but I'm just going to release it now. So on your screen, you'll see a little smaller screen that says, "What state are you from?" We usually do this beginning of every class. We have like some kind of question to ask you guys, like what happened in the previous session. And in the next 4 weeks or next 4 sessions, we'll be just asking quick polls at the beginning of class to just gauge where you are, or in this case, what state you're from. So if you don't want to answer that, that's completely fine. But I just put up the poll so we can just see where everybody's from.
Yeah, and yeah, as I mentioned, it's completely anonymous. So it's just a fun kind of poll. But yeah.
All right. Yeah. So now I'll go into more of where, or the dates for future sessions. So today is our first webinar or our first session, and that's September 23rd. And the next session will be on September 30th, which is the same day. So we have all of our classes every Wednesday for the next 4 weeks from 4 to 5:15. So It's just the same time every week. There's no change of schedule. But this is just a list of future sessions in case you want to like note it down or anything.
Yeah, and again, the Zoom link, the this link for joining all the sessions for the next 4 weeks are the complete same. So one important thing to keep in note is that if you guys ever don't have the link for any of the sessions, just keep in mind that they're always the same link. So you can go back to any email that we sent, and then just click the link from there. And on an additional note, we send out weekly emails pretty much every single week after every single class. So at the end of this class, typically 2 to 3 days after, we'll send a weekly email with a recording and more information about what we covered in that class, along with other important information. And those emails are sent directly to your parents. So it will likely be in their inbox, but sometimes it can go in their junk. So if you have trouble finding a recording, or you just want to look at what we covered again, if you missed the class for some reason, or you just want to make sure that you're caught up, make sure to ask your parents to check their inbox or check their junk mail. They'll find the weekly email, and all the information you need for the next few weeks are in that email. And again, we're going to be sending, even before the classes, we'll be sending emails as well, with Zoom links and other important information. So everything that you guys ever need to know for any of these classes is inside those emails. So make sure you're paying attention to those, and you'll be good to go. Um, and yeah, so what exactly are we covering today? I know that a lot of people are asking that as well. So just basics. Don't worry too much if some of this stuff looks confusing. We're going to be getting into it right away, but we'll be covering what computer science is, what is IoT, what's an Arduino. I'm sure many of you are wondering that. The difference between software and hardware. We're going to be getting into some stuff with Arduino, and then we'll be building our first project today. So that's kind of ends on a good note. So let's get started with what is computer science.
Yeah, so like Sol said, a lot of our all of our sessions or webinars will start off with a couple of concepts or things that you need to know before we get into our first project. And so, like Sol said, we'll be getting into our first project at the after we cover a few slides. And so, we'll quickly just get into some of these concepts or things that you need to know before we get into doing whatever project we do. And the first thing is, what is computer science? And so this entire program and a lot of our programs that we have been doing in the last 6 months have focused on teaching computer science to um, students or other kids your age. And so it's not really a familiar word. So we just want to go over it and what it actually means. Um, and so, as a simple definition, computer science is just the thinking required before you do a build or program some kind of like an Arduino or build an app. So it's basically the thinking or problem solving technique that you need before you write a set of instructions or you write some code. And so that's just a simple definition, but it can go into a lot of aspects, and it has a broad um, it's really a broad spectrum of what information is there. So computer science, it can mean a lot of things, but in just simple terms, it's just studying and learning more about computers, hardware, software, how to write a set of instructions like code. And so we'll be in this course, we'll specifically go into writing code as well as um, showing you how to build hardware, and that's with an Arduino. So
Yeah, so San touched upon this pretty well, but we're, one of the main things that I think is really important for before we get into this course is the difference between hardware and software. So they may sound like complicated words, but their definitions is really simple. Hardware is just parts that you can physically touch. So you can imagine like hardware could be an example like a light or a car, right? Like metal or a car or a tire or whatever. Software is the instructions that it could be like a computer program, it could be a line of code. So software is not necessarily you can touch, but it runs the operations and is kind of the backbone of hardware. So today we're going to be using both hardware and software, and Arduino combines both those concepts perfectly. So we'll be using both, and you guys will get experience in both, hopefully by the end of these 4 weeks.
All right, so quickly just get into what an Arduino is. Also, in one of our previous slides, I think a lot of you guys mentioned we did get a couple of the dates wrong. So the next one is on September 30th, and then the one after that, I believe, is October 7th. And then the one after that is October 14th. I could be wrong, but it's in October. We got the. It's not supposed to be September 17th and September 13th. Yeah, so we'll quickly get into what an Arduino is, and an Arduino is pretty much the entire basics of base of this course. We'll be focusing on how to program an Arduino, how to connect to other parts. Um, and so for those who don't know what an Arduino is, which I'm sure many of you guys who don't know what it is, it's kind of just like a small board, and it's like probably like two inches by 3 inches. It's pretty small. It's not that big. If you've seen one in real life, but it can be programmed. That's the main thing. It can be programmed. And so you can write code for it to do something. Um, and so many of you guys, if you've been a part of our previous course called Intro to App Building, you know that we used a platform called MIT App Inventor to program and build an app. But instead, this time we won't be interacting with something as intangible like a app or anything like that. On an Arduino is an actual board. It's an actual piece of metal that when it's plugged into your computer, you can program it and connect it to other electronics. And so the main base of this course is that an Arduino, since we can program it, we can connect it to lights and other kind of electrical components. Um, so that's just all you really need to know. You will get a better understanding of what an Arduino is as we go on in the course or in these sessions. But just as a general idea, it's just something that you can program and it can connect to other parts. And so all of our projects will be based on programming it and then connecting it to a light, or it'll depend based on each project. So we'll get into some of the concepts before we get into the next project.
Yeah, so a quick concept that's kind of a follow up to Arduino is IoT, and IoT stands for Internet of Things. And so IoT, believe it or not, is everywhere around you. You guys use IoT pretty much every single day. So again, IoT stands for Internet of Things, and what it is it's basically the connection of hardware to the internet. So a good example of IoT that you guys probably use is think of a weather app, right? You go on the app and you see the weather, but how does the phone know what the weather is? So what the phone is doing is it's connecting to the internet and asking the internet and saying, "Hey, what's the weather today?" And then once it gets that information, it's displaying it on your phone. That's a very simple example, and there's a lot more examples of IoT that are pretty that you guys use pretty much every single day. But that's a very simple example. And yeah, just remember that all IoT is it's talking to the internet to get information, and it's a connection of hardware to the internet.
Right. So, as I was saying, I think I cut off right before I was explaining what Tinkercad is. But, um, yeah. So, like I said, some of the people who did our past program called Intro to App Building, they used a platform called MIT App Inventor to build their apps. So, instead, this time we'll be using Tinkercad. And so, like I said before, Arduino is a physical board, and you need to have the actual board, like the little chip. Um, and you need to plug into your computer to program it, and you need to use wires to connect it to other components. But since most of you guys most likely don't have this at hand, we'll be using this platform called Tinkercad, um, where you will log on and simply we'll be able to use the Arduino to connect to different parts. And so this makes it really easy for people who don't have an Arduino already, because they can connect it to any part they want, like a light or a motor, things like that. That's what an Arduino is used for. It's just to program different parts and hardware. So um, we'll show you how to log on in just a few minutes, but that's just a basis or just a basic understanding of what Tinkercad is.
Yeah, and as Sun mentioned, I know some people are asking, do we need an Arduino for this? You absolutely do not. I'd say like all of you pretty much do not have an Arduino, and you guys do not need one for this at all. The entire program can be done without an Arduino. And additionally, no programming experience was required for this course. So if you guys are just getting into computer science or just getting into technology or just getting started with an Arduino, we're here to help you guys step by step. So do not worry, regardless of your experience level, we're going to help you guys finish each of these 4 projects over the course of the next 4 weeks. And so with that, we will be doing our first project today, which is called the Blinking LED project. We'll get more into depth of what an LED really is, but the project essentially will cover, bringing software and hardware together. You guys will get familiar with the Tinkercad platform, familiar with Arduino, wiring with Arduinos, and kind of coding as well. So we're gonna get into that today. Yeah, and it's gonna be really fun. So, yep.
Okay, so just Sol said, we'll be explaining some parts in the future as well. So in the next 4 weeks, we'll be explaining all the way from certain components, what they are, how we'll be using them, and then every time at the end of towards the end of the class, we'll get into um, how exactly you can build the project using these components. So for our project today, like Sol said, it's a blinking LED project. And so the simple idea is that uh, once you run the simulation or you turn on the Arduino, the LED will constantly blink on and off. So an LED is a light, if you haven't noticed already. So it's just a small light that can be programmed. Um, so an LED can be found anywhere. You probably have LEDs in your house too. But in our case, the LED is like just like a small light that has like a casing around it, and it can be connected to the Arduino. So yeah, that's just a simple understanding. We'll get into other components as well.
Yeah. So another kind of, as we discussed, right, software could be a line of code. So one line of code that we're going to be using a lot today will be a line of code called digital write. And so all a digital write does, it will just access a certain pin. So a pin is essentially just like a small little hole on an Arduino. And that hole can be connected to a wire, and that wire can be connected to an LED, for example. So, for example, we have our LED over here. Remember, it's just a small little light. That light can be wired and connected to, say, pin 1. And then what we can say is in our code, we can say digital write 1 comma high. So you guys may be wondering, what is high? What is 1? What does this line of code mean? So all digital write will do is it will say, it will tell the Arduino to go access pin 1, go to pin 1, and then turn on the whatever is connected to pin 1. So 1 comma high will say turn on pin 1. That's all it's doing. And then similarly, I can write digital write 1 comma low. It says 8 over here, but you get the idea. The number that's written down on the very first, written down first, is the pin number. So if I write 8, it would go to pin 8. If I write 1, it will go to pin 1. If I write 5, it will go to pin 5. So if I write digital write 1 comma low, it will just say go to pin 1 and turn off whatever is associated with pin 1. So if I say digital write 1 comma high, it will turn on the light or the LED. And if I say digital write 1 comma low, it will go to pin 1 and turn off the LED. It's very simple. Digital write just accesses whatever is connected to that pin. If you guys have any questions about this, go ahead and type in the Q&A, and we'll be answering them throughout. We're going to be using digital write a lot in this project. And so if you guys have any questions, just feel free to ask away.
Yeah, and as Sol said, just to clarify, the pin is just where you put in the LED. So it could be, we'll show you in the Arduino later, but in real life, if you had an Arduino, you would just connect the wires at the end of the LED or the light, and you put it in. You would connect it to a certain area of the Arduino, and that area has a number associated with it. So like pin 1 or pin 2, things like that. And so now that we've covered all the concepts, we'll get into how to log into the Tinkercad website and platform, and then we'll get right into building the project.
All right, welcome back, guys. Now we're gonna go ahead and start building our blinking LED project. I'll be going over how to do the hardware for the Arduino, and then Sun will get into the code for the Arduino. Just a referral, remember that we're gonna be doing steps on how to get set up with Tinkercad. If you don't know what Tinkercad is, go back through this video, and in the PowerPoint, we've elaborately discussed what Tinkercad is. Essentially, it's just a small platform to allow us to simulate what an Arduino does. And if you don't know what an Arduino is, just go back in the video and we explained everything from there. So the first thing we're going to do inside Tinkercad is that we're going to join our class. So if you remember, we gave you guys a code inside class. You type that code in and then entered your nickname or username, and then you joined into the class. So if you were having trouble with that process, need to catch up, or just didn't miss the class last time, this is the perfect place to start. So the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go to a link, and it's tinkercad.com/join. So you can see the link above. It's in my browser, tinkercad.com/join. So once you go over there, you want to click on students join a class. Once I click this green button over here, I'm going to click it, and then it says your teacher will give you a code. So what you're going to do from here is you're going to join our Intro to Arduino class. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys the code that we have for our class, and the code is right over here. It's J6NK KLAFSVI4. So I'm going to copy that code, and then I can just paste it right in here. You won't have this site over here. That's only accessible to Sign and I, but just copy this code, write it down on a paper, and then go back to your other tab, and then just type in the code. So once you type in the code, I have the code over here. I'll wait a couple seconds for you guys to get in there, but once you type in your code into this text box, click go to my class. And if you're in the right, if you type in the code right, then it will say welcome to Intro to Arduino, start STEM early. So that makes you know that you are in the right place. Now you need to type your nickname. Nickname is just a simpler way to say username. So your username will be what we gave you. So what you want to do is you want to go to another tab, and then go to our website, startstemearly.org/me. Once you go to this website, we have a list of your guys' names and the according to username. So if I scroll down and I find, for example, Jeffrey Osborne, his username will be the one diagonal or directly on the left. So it's just going to be right there. Same thing for like Amelia Lara, it would be right over here. I think you guys get the point. So go to startstemearly.org/me, find your name, and then find your according username on the left. So you can find your username on the left. Then what you guys need to do is go type this username inside that text box, which says your nickname. So for example, I'll type in my username. For example, it was start one. Don't type that in, type in your username. And then once you type in your username and say let begin, then you'll go into your like place to create your projects. Again, do not type what I just typed into my username. That is my username, but you have to find your according username in the link startstemearly.org/me. Find your name, find your recording username, type it inside that box which has your nickname, hit enter, and then it'll take you to this page. And once you're inside this page, now we can start creating our very first Arduino project, the blinking LED project. So the first thing I want to do is when I'm over here is go on the left, click circuits, and then I'm going to say create a new circuit. And then then it'll just take a little bit to load. Then I'll be inside my first blank canvas to build my very first Arduino project. So the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to find my Arduino. Remember, as we discussed in class, on the right is places or elements where you can grab and throw stuff into your project. So I can grab an LED, I can grab a resistor, I can grab my Arduino. There's a variety of stuff that you can grab over here. But the first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead, and you're going to see on the top, it says components basic. That's just the base components, but I want to see all my components so I can view everything. So I'm gonna just click on this and I'm gonna click all. And then what I'm gonna do is on the search bar, I can search for virtually anything I want. I can search, for example, an Arduino, because that's what we need right now. And if I search for an Arduino, the first thing that pops up is the Arduino Uno R3. Forget the model name, forget what the Uno R3, that doesn't really matter. The whole point is that it's an Arduino. And the way I can put this into my project is by clicking and dragging and putting that in. And so once that's in, I can get started with, I remember the blinking LED project is just the small light that will start blinking on and off. So the next thing I need into this project is my LED. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go get myself an LED. So if I click this X over here, you realize I've searched Arduino, but if I just wanna empty my search, I can just click X and then it'll just go back to whatever it was. So again, I can just search for the light, remember LED? I can just search for an LED, and then there it is, my LED. I can click and drag that in, and then I can start, now once I've put in the LED, I can start connecting my LED to my Arduino. So the first thing I wanna go ahead and do is I wanna quickly, just real quick, kind of see where my Arduino is. So sorry about that zoom, but remember that as we discussed in class, these pins are numbered and they mean different things. So the first thing over here, ground, G and D, that stands for ground. Remember, as we said, ground stands for power. So that powers the Arduino. So what I'm gonna do from here is I wanna connect ground to my LED. And we want this to be an open circle, or circle, sorry. It has to be a circle. So we want our light connected to Arduino and then the Arduino connected to the light. And it just goes in a complete circle. And then as soon as we run our program, the LED will start flashing on and off. So what I'm gonna do from here is I wanna start connecting my wires to the LED. So what I'm gonna do first is get a resistor. And if you remember what we discussed inside class, is a resistor is something that will control the power, right? The only thing that you guys really need to know about a resistor is that it helps make sure that the Arduino does not burn out itself, okay? Because we don't want us throwing electricity inside the Arduino and then it goes in a complete circle and then the Arduino is just burnt out. That's not what we want. So we want the resistor in order to control the electricity and make sure that our Arduino is stable and not burning out. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go find myself a resistor. Remember, the way I can do that is by going over to the right, going to the search bar and typing resistor. Over here, I can type resistor, or it's actually right over here. I can just grab it from the top. I'm gonna click and drag, put the resistor in. And now I wanna connect the ground to the resistor and the resistor to the LED. So all I need to do is remember how we did it in class, how we created our wires was we simply just clicked and dragged, right? So I can click my ground and I can just connect it to there. I can click this one, I can connect it to there. And then also I can click this and I can connect it to pin, any of these pins, right? I can connect it to any number of these pins, but I'm gonna connect it to pin 13. That's just for easier purposes. We can just write pin 13 in the end. And then there we go. That's all I have for my complete circuit. I'm done with I'm done building essentially the hardware for this project. All that is left is to go through the code and make sure it is working. So now we can see that we're done with the hardware. And then now Sun will go over and show you guys a little bit more about the code and running our project.
Yeah, so along with this platform like we have here where your Arduino is connected with wires to other components, another key part about this entire platform is that it allows you to um, program along with the building and assembling of the components. So just like you've taken an LED and connected to the Arduino, there's also code that's generated. And in the future, we'll definitely be getting into um, how to write code for building specific projects. But in this case, a great thing about this platform or this project is it automatically generates the code for you. And that's only because it's a very simple code. As we get into more complex projects, we'll have to write the code ourselves. But I'll quickly just give you an overview of how this code actually works. So as you can see, on here, what I'll quickly disable this, but if you're on the screen right now, you'll see on the right, you have all your components where you can add a component or whatever you want. But then I'll show you how to get to your code. So on the top right of your screen, you'll see the button that says code, and it's in this gray bar, and you want to click on it. And you'll see once you do that, you'll most likely most of you will see this. Most likely you'll see this. Um, and so people who aren't familiar with text programming, um, a lot of programming languages are like this. In fact, actually, all programming languages like follow this kind of format where it's text and not blocks. But because a lot of you guys are in different, we have out of the 200 students that are on the call right now, all of them range from third grade to eighth grade, and so we kind of want to cover all areas so that everybody is able to learn. So throughout this course, we'll actually be using a hybrid of both. And so it's actually up to you what you want to do, but I'll just kind of show you what this looks like. So if you click on the very top, you'll see in this little scroll bar, you can select blocks and text, or just text. And so text is just this, where it's the place where you can, it looks like this. You can program just by typing, just like a typical programming language. And so for people wondering what programming language this is, it's actually Arduino C. That's what the name is. It's not a very common language. It's actually only used for Arduinos, or the board, a programmable board. Um, but yeah, that's just the base of it. And so people who've done our intro to app building course that we did this summer, you may have been familiar. You're familiar using these kind of blocks here. And so it's a very similar format that you can drag in a block and it execute. Each block has its own purpose. It has its own function. So, for example, over here we have a wait 1 second block, and I'm sure you got many people who've done their intro to app building course. You remember that there was a wait 1 second block as well. Um, so in this course specifically, we'll be covering kind of both sides. It's the main thing that we want everybody to learn is the logic behind programming an Arduino. So it doesn't really matter whether you use it, whether you type it, whether you use blocks, whatever you're comfortable with. Feel free to use any one. But I'll kind of be going over both of them just so that everybody knows. And they're very similar. The only difference between blocks and text is that the text has a different kind of name. For example, we have digital write here. And that's kind of what we talked about earlier, digital write, which turns on a specific pin. So your LED is connected to pin 13. It's just a number. It doesn't really matter. It's just connected to a pin. And so I'll explain the code in general, and I'll specifically talk about what each line means and what each block means. So whatever you're comfortable using, that's completely fine. If you want to challenge yourself and use the text, it's actually using this text code right here is actually not that hard. So it's actually very easy to learn. So feel free to use that as well. But since we already have the code here, I'll quickly explain what this means. And since earlier we already explained what digital write means, I'll go over it again. Digital write just means that it's accessing the pin. So it's telling the Arduino. And Arduino, you should note that every time we talk about code, the code is just a set of instructions. It's telling the Arduino what to do, right? It's just like if I told you how to get somewhere, like how to get to someone's house. You tell them the directions, right? You tell them street names. You tell them which direction they need to go in. So that's a very similar process here. You're telling the Arduino what to do. Like what should I turn it on or should I turn it off? So this is what this line is doing right here. It's just telling the Arduino that turn this light right here, which is the light right here. It's connected to pin 13. So it's saying, it's telling the Arduino, turn this on. And then as you can see, this next line is telling the Arduino to wait for 1 second. And as you can see, this is not one, it's actually 1,000. Um, and so if you're not familiar with this already, but um, all this, the Arduino's text, Arduino C, the programming language here, can't actually, doesn't actually know what seconds is. It knows what milliseconds is. Um, so 1,000 milliseconds is just 1 second. So instead of writing one, we write 1,000. Um, and then you'll see the next line, it says turn it off, because low means off. Low just means off and high just means on. So that's just something you need to know. Um, and there's different modes as well, but these are just the two basic modes for turning an LED on and off. And so, um, and then at the end, it's waiting another 1,000 milliseconds or 1 second. And if you're on the block and text format, you'll see on the left here that it's a very similar thing. It turns it on, it waits 1 second, it turns it off, it waits 1 second. And so as the name suggests, this is a blinking LED project, right? We're telling the Arduino, we're telling the computer in a way to turn the LED on, wait 1 second, turn it off, wait 1 second, turn it on. So it's a constant loop. And one thing you need to know, one thing you need to see here is that there's something that says void loop, and you don't really need to know what void is. It's just a word that tells the computer that, okay, I'm gonna loop all of this inside. And so just like that, the computer's gonna know that until you stop the simulation, it's just gonna constantly repeat this code, right? So it's gonna say turn it on, wait 1 second, turn it off, wait 1 second, and then it'll do it all over again until you tell it to stop. It'll just keep on doing it. So this is what void loop means right here. The other thing that you guys need to know is what this means, void setup. And I'll get into more of this next week, but this just means that you're telling the computer that an LED exists. You're telling the computer that okay, so you actually have an LED connected right now. That's all you're doing. And if it's confusing right now, that's completely fine. Just know that that's what it means in this case. So I've pretty much gone over all the code. If you have any questions, make sure to ask them in the Q&A. And the next thing that you can do, so you can actually run this program. That's the great thing about this platform. It allows you to actually run the whatever code you've written for your project. And so to do that, go ahead and click Start Simulation right here. And you'll see that as soon as you do that, the LED starts blinking on and off. And this is, if you had an Arduino in real life, it would do the exact same thing. You'd use wires, you would connect the LED to the Arduino, the board, and then you would write code to tell the computer what to do. And so that's basically the overview here. Like I said, currently this project will automatically generate the code for you. And that's just because this is a simple project, but later on we'll definitely be getting into writing our own code. And so that's all you really need to know. Quickly just stop the simulation here.
Yeah, and also I think a lot of people are asking how we changed instead of moving from blocks, changed it to blocks plus text. So Sun will show you guys how to do that right now, how you guys can make text show up. So usually it has, I think the default is blocks. But what you want to do is, as Sun is going to show you, or like for example, it's text right now. To change it to blocks plus text, just click that drop down and then select blocks plus text. Once you click that, just click continue, and then you'll be taken to blocks plus text.
Yeah, and so this is just a basic code that we have right now. Once again, if you want to start your simulation, just click Start Simulation, and you'll see on the left, it just turns on and off every 1 second. So that's just the basics of it. And so, yeah, we're completely done with our project for today.